It's no fun when our kids are sick, but we may just have found the silver lining. Apple and raspberry and orange flavoured electrolyte slushies made by Rehydrate.
Rehydrate slushies are a tasty way to get essential electrolytes into our little ones when they're dehydrated from sickness or even just the Aussie heat. They're delicious and they'll help your little ones feel better in no time. Grab Rehydrate from Coles today.
It's Happy Families podcast with Dr Justin Coulson. We're Luke and Susie, parents of 3 little boys, and this is the podcast for those of us who are time-poor parents who just want answers now.
Justin, today, stop, look and listen. Now, that sounds like a catchphrase for teaching kids how to cross the road from when I was younger.
Or I stole it.
All the swimming techniques. You know.
Yeah, that's right.
Stay alive to the 5.
But it seems sometimes that our kids aren't paying attention to us. Are the kids... Is there something wrong with our kids, basically, is my question, Justin?
Yes, there is.
No, I think the problem's with us.
Yeah.
So the most common question I get from parents, literally, the 2 most common are, how do I get them off their dance screens? But how do I get them to listen to me?
Yeah.
And they're often interlinked, by the way, those 2 questions. Yeah. But when I step back from that question a little bit, and I'll often ask parents, I'll say, well, let me ask you this. How well do you listen to them? What kind of an example have you set for them? And when I ask that question, there's an initial, of course I listen to them. And then I say, well, let's unpack that a little bit. How well do you really listen? You know, how many times do they have to call out to you? What about when they're telling you about that thing that happened at school with the thing and then and 14 minutes later it's still going and you've kind of disappeared into your own little la-la land because, oh man, they go on sometimes. I know most of the time they say, but every now and again they actually tell you how their day was, and you're like, oh, gee, I wish you'd just gone.
Opened up a can of worms.
And I remember an experience that I had with one of my kids in my first book, which is called What Your Child Needs From You. I've got this list of things that you can look at, questionnaire items where you sort of say, to what extent am I in tune with my child? To what extent am I paying attention to my child? And when Kylie, my wife, read this list, she was like, hey, this is a great list. How are we doing? And I said, I think we're doing great. And she said, do you reckon the kids would say that? I said, let's not ask. But that night, while I played with the kids in the living room, Kylie sat in one of the other rooms and she interviewed them one by one with a pen and paper. She went through the questions to ask them how well we were doing as parents. We had our very first parenting performance appraisal.
Right.
and we did okay, but there was room to move. And one of the kids in particular, she said, you know, when you're on the computer or when you're doing other stuff, you say you're listening, but you're not because you keep doing what you were doing. What she was essentially saying is, I want you to stop and pay attention to me when I ask you a question. I want you to be there and be where your feet are, not have your head somewhere else while I'm talking. The kids know. And so I've come up with this stop, look and listen idea because, you know, let's extend the metaphor. Yeah. You're on the side of the road with your kids and you're about to cross the road. Only a fool would fail to stop, look and listen. Yeah. We understand that. Why do we do that? Because there could be something significant coming down the road that could change our lives in big ways. Yeah. It could completely write us off or worse. And I think that in our children's lives, on a daily basis, there are things coming down their road that can derail them or put them in hospital, emotionally or psychologically or even physically. And if we don't stop what we're doing and look them in the eyes and listen to the words that they're saying to us, even if it's boring to us, we might miss one of those fast-moving trucks. Yeah. And they could just get cleaned up by it if we're not there to save them.
I've found recently that my relationship with my eldest is changing because we've had some time one-on-one. And in that one-on-one time, he is starting to talk. And I've been able to have the opportunity to just sit and listen to him. In the car, generally, we have our chats. But as a result of that, now he's started a little journal. And every day he's showing me his journal entries and wanting me to read them and give him feedback on them. But I think about my 2 youngest, and I know I don't give them the same time and effort and energy. So how do we balance that out when you've got 6, we've got 3, but balancing that out across all your children? I already feel like I already know I'm not parenting my children the same way, each of my children.
Yeah, I feel like Kylie and I have almost got two families. Our big three get a very different response and style of parenting to the last three because, you know, the big three were born while I was learning to be a parenting expert. Yeah. And then the last three were born once I had the qualifications and, you know, life was moving on.
It's kind of reassuring to hear that, Justin, as you are a parenting expert. But more next with Dr. Justin from the Happy Families podcast as we continue to talk about stop, look and listen.
When it comes to toilet training, things can get a little stuck. Dr. Justin Coulson has written a No Mess, No Fuss ebook to help. Written for busy parents, you'll whiz through how to toilet train your child without getting bogged in too much detail. You'll find straight shooting answers about toilet training based on scientific research, like how to know when your child is ready to toilet train, and the most popular toilet training approaches and what science says about them. This is the fast-flowing, easy-to-digest ebook to get your kids going at the right time, in the right place and the right way. Toilet training, easy as 1, 2, wee. Available at happyfamilies.com.au.
It's the Happy Families podcast with Dr. Justin Coulson, and today we are talking about stop, look and listen, the importance of really listening. Justin, we were just talking about the fact that we're not parenting all of our children the same way. Getting that balance is difficult.
I don't think there's such a thing as balance, quite frankly. We're all seeking it, but life gets in the way of balance all the time. So there's a couple of things to bear in mind. Number one, triage. You know, if somebody needs you, be there.
Yeah.
Just stop what you're doing and be there. You've kind of got to. But there's a few other things that we can do that I think are really important. And with fewer children, it's easier than with more children, but you can do it regardless. I think that it's really, really vital that we have some one-on-one time, at least once a week with each child, where we don't talk. We just spend time together. No agenda, happy to listen if they've got something to say or just having fun if there's nothing to say. But we're engaged and we're involved and we ask the questions. How's everything going at school? How's things going with your friends? Has anything troubled you lately? Is there anything I can help you with? Is there anything you want to talk about? In addition to that, on a daily basis, we need to have some nurture time with our children. I love nighttime nurture. I think the last 5 or 10 minutes before the kids go to sleep is almost sacred time. You know, that's where you kneel down beside the bed and you read them that story and you sing them a song and you give them a cuddle and you just savour those moments.
Yeah.
Knowing that in 10 minutes they'll all be asleep.
Well, that's it, because often it's our most tired time of day.
And it's so hard, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
So there are a couple of things. You know, in our home every morning we get the family together at about 6:30 and we have a little bit of either a pep talk or some devotional time, a lot of people will call it, where we just focus on one thing that we think is really important for our family to think about during the day, and we spend a few minutes talking and being together as a family. Yeah. But it's one-on-one. That's where the real work of raising children is done. Yeah. And it's about stopping and paying attention, looking and listening.
We've had a couple of experiences with our kids that I think taps in, gives us the evidence that what you're saying is very effective. And one, I remember our kids, and like most kids, had a tendency, Tyson in particular, to interrupt when you're in the middle of adult conversations. You have some, and whatever was on his agenda was the most important. And Susie so beautifully set up a system and said, if you've got something to say and we're in the middle of adult conversation, it's rude to interrupt. But let me tell you what you can do. If you put your hand on my leg or you touch me in such a way that says, Mummy, I want your attention, she said, I will put my hand on yours to let you know that I feel it. And then we'll wait until there's a break in conversation, and then I will come and you will have my undivided attention. And it's amazing how beautifully polite that child is in that environment now.
What a great way to set that up.
Because
yeah,
the first way...
I got it from someone else. It wasn't my idea.
The first thing communicated to him is, I want to hear you
and
I want to give you all of my attention. But there are boundaries, there are manners. We'll deal with those, but you've got me at the right moment. And I just think what a great impact we've had on the kids. And the other was with Royden, who had a speech challenge. And he couldn't communicate. And there were times when I realised that he would try and say something to us and we couldn't understand him. We'd say it a second time, we couldn't understand him. We'd say it a third time, couldn't understand him. And eventually, you could see his shoulders drop, his face become forlorn, and he walked away.
Just gave up.
He gave up. And there's no point, I can never get it. And it broke our heart when you could physically see it the moment he gave up. So we started to get down, look him straight in the eye and say, buddy, we really want to know what you're saying. And we'd get him to say it again and slow. And even then we go, can you take my hand and is it something you can show me? And there are times often when he'd take our hand, walk us into the kitchen to the pantry and he'd point at the Vegemite. And he wanted a Vegemite sandwich, but we couldn't understand. But suddenly, the difference that it made in him was when he goes, when we felt that he knew, we wanted to get, don't give up, because we'll keep going until we get it.
When we stop, when we look, when we listen, we communicate something profoundly important. That is, you are worthy.
Yes.
10-second story to finish, because I know we're out of time. I'm stirring in the kitchen the onion and the garlic in the oil in the pan, on the pot, whatever you call it. I don't cook very well, obviously. and I'm stirring and stirring and stirring, and I became aware that Abby, who was about 2 or 3 at the time, was tugging on my pants. Dad.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm doing important things here. I'm cooking dinner. I can't be interrupted. I don't know what to do next. And then I realised I'm a parenting expert. I'm supposed to pay attention to my daughter.
What is it that I say? Stop, look, listen. Yeah.
So I did. I stopped. I crouched down. I looked her in the eyes and I said, Abby, I know you were trying to tell me something and I wasn't listening properly. I'm sorry. I'm listening now. She looked at me. She smiled. She said, I love you, Dad. And then she skipped off into the lounge room.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
It just took a moment.
She just wanted to tell me she loved me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much, Dr. Justin Coulson. That book that you mentioned in there was What Your Child Needs From You. You can get a copy of that and any other books that Justin has written and podcasts that you can listen to as well. And there's other programs there as well. Loads of resources at happyfamilies.com.au.
Or to find out how you can actually book Justin to speak at your school or organisation, then you can touch base with Justin at justincoulson.com. Thanks very much, Justin.
Thanks, guys.